The hall carries its own kind of weight long before anything happens. Old wooden floors hum softly under hundreds of feet. Metal chairs scrape, then settle. The smell of sweat and dust hangs low, familiar and sharp. People fill the space with noise, small talk, laughter, speculation, but none of it feels relaxed. Everyone senses something hovering just beyond the moment, something waiting to step forward. When he enters, there is no announcement. No spotlight. Just a shift. Conversations taper off as eyes follow him across the floor. He moves without hurry, shoulders loose, hands open at his sides. He is older than most here, and he knows they see it. The lines in his face. The measured pace. He does not try to hide any of it. He does not need to. Across the hall, another presence begins to pull the air in a different direction. The wrestler stands taller than nearly everyone around him, broad in a way that seems deliberate, as if built to take up space. His chest rises high with each breath. He rolls his neck once, then again. The sound of bone cracking carries farther than it should. A few people glance toward him, then back, then toward him again. The space between them is not large, but it feels crowded. The wrestler steps forward, not aggressively, not yet, but with intent. His boots strike the floor heavier than necessary. Each step announces itself. People begin to notice. A small circle opens without anyone asking for it. Instinct clears the floor. Someone chuckles nervously. Someone else leans back against the wall, arms crossed, eyes bright. The tension does not explode. It tightens. He notices the movement but does not stop stretching. His arms rise slowly, then fall. He rotates his shoulders, gentle, almost lazy. His breathing stays even. There is no glance of irritation. No challenge in his eyes. Only awareness. The wrestler stops a few feet away. Close enough to be felt. Heat radiates from him. Confidence, too, raw and unfiltered. He looks down slightly, just enough to remind everyone of the difference. He smiles, but it does not reach his eyes. The hall quiets further. Even the chairs seem to hold still. No one wants to interrupt whatever is forming here. No one wants to be the one who breaks it. He finally lifts his gaze. Not quickly. Not sharply. Just enough to meet the wrestler's eyes. There is no flinch. No tightening of the jaw. His face remains open, calm, almost curious. As if he is studying weather rather than threat. The wrestler shifts his weight, testing the floor. Testing him. Pride hums off his body, loud without words. This is not hatred. This is hunger. A need to prove something in front of witnesses. The silence stretches. Long enough to become uncomfortable. Long enough for the room to feel exposed. He exhales slowly, drops his arms, and lets them hang loose again. Whatever is about to happen, he is not rushing toward it. He is letting it arrive. And in that stillness, before voices rise, before bodies collide, the entire hall leans forward, held by the sense that restraint, not strength, will decide what comes next. The moment does not break. It settles into something heavier, something that presses inward rather than bursting out. The hall seems smaller now, walls closer, ceiling lower. Sound returns in fragments, the squeak of a shoe, a cough quickly swallowed, the low hum of fluorescent lights overhead. Everything feels amplified because nothing important is happening yet. The wrestler shifts again, planting his feet wider this time. He looks around briefly, aware of the audience he has gathered without asking for one. There is pride in that awareness. Not arrogance, but a sharp need to be acknowledged. He has carried it for a long time. It shows in the way his jaw tightens, in the way his hands curl and uncurl as if gripping something invisible. He remains where he is, rolling his shoulders once more, slower now. His movements are economical, almost meditative. Anyone watching closely can see that he is listening, not just to the man in front of him, but to the room itself, to its mood, to its breath. The wrestler finally speaks, his voice low but firm, pitched just high enough for those nearest to hear. It is not an insult yet. It is a probe, a comment about space, about warming up, about whether there is enough room for everyone to train properly. His words are casual, but the intent underneath them is clear. He is testing where the line is. A few people glance at each other. Someone smirks. Someone else looks uneasy, as if hoping this will dissolve into nothing before it demands a side. He nods once as the words land. Not agreement. Acknowledgement. He does not interrupt. He lets the sentence finish, lets the echo of it hang in the air. When he moves again, it is to step slightly to the side, giving space rather than claiming it. The gesture is subtle, but it changes the geometry of the moment. The wrestler notices. His brow furrows. This is not the reaction he expected. He had prepared for resistance. For bravado. For a challenge that would let him rise to the occasion he feels he deserves. Instead, he is met with openness, and it unsettles him. Around them, people begin to whisper. The quiet has grown uncomfortable, and discomfort seeks release. Someone murmurs a name. Someone else mutters about size, about age. Comparisons float just beneath the surface, unspoken but shared. He bends at the waist and stretches his back, hands resting briefly on his knees. When he straightens, his eyes never leave the wrestler. There is no fear there. But there is also no hunger to dominate. Only presence. The wrestler takes another half-step forward, closing the gap again. This time, the challenge sharpens. His voice carries farther. He mentions speed. Mentions strength. Mentions time. Each word is chosen carefully, aimed not to wound but to provoke. To force a response that will justify whatever comes next. The hall waits. He remains still, absorbing it all. The noise, the eyes, the expectation. He has stood in louder rooms. He has faced harsher storms. This is different. This is intimate. Human. And it requires a different kind of attention. The air thickens, charged with a sense that the next few moments will not be forgotten, not because of what might be done, but because of what might be withheld. The wrestler did not always carry himself like this. The bulk, the confidence, the need to be noticed, these were built over years, layered on top of something quieter. He grew up in places where size decided whether you were heard, where being overlooked meant being passed by, forgotten. Early on, he learned that strength could open doors faster than patience ever would. Wrestling became his language. It gave shape to his anger and discipline to his restlessness. On the mat, effort was visible. Pain had meaning. Victory, even small, earned respect. Coaches praised his intensity. Crowds responded to his power. For the first time, he felt centered inside his own body. Seen. But success came unevenly. There were wins, yes, but also long stretches of waiting. Of watching others rise while he hovered on the edge. He trained harder. Ate more. Lifted heavier. Built himself into something impossible to ignore. Still, recognition arrived slowly, if at all. Each delay sharpened his urgency. Each overlooked opportunity pressed deeper into his chest. By the time he walked into this hall, he was carrying more than muscle. He was carrying years of comparison. Of being told potential was not enough. Of being advised to wait his turn while others seemed to skip the line. When he heard that the older champion would be training here today, something tightened inside him. Not resentment, curiosity edged with longing. He had watched him before. Everyone had. The calm. The composure. The way rooms bent toward him without effort. To the wrestler, that ease felt unfair. Not because it was undeserved, but because it seemed unreachable. He had fought for every inch of attention. Here was someone who commanded it by simply standing still. He told himself this was not about proving anything. That it was just a test. A measure. But deep down, he wanted confirmation that his years of strain had led somewhere real. That power mattered. That youth and strength still counted against reputation and age. So he stepped forward. Not to humiliate. Not to harm. But to force a moment that would answer a question he had been carrying for too long. He needed to know where he stood in a world that kept shifting its standards. As he spoke, he watched closely for signs. A flash of irritation. A defensive posture. Anything that would let him justify pushing further. Instead, he found himself unsettled by the absence of resistance. By the way the older man listened without shrinking. By the way he made space rather than taking it. The wrestler's chest tightened. This was not how challenges usually went. There was supposed to be escalation. Heat. A clear line drawn. Without it, his own intentions felt exposed. He tried again, this time sharper. Words chosen to sting just enough. To pull something raw into the open. Around them, the room leaned in, sensing that this was no longer about training schedules or floor space. It was about identity. Inside, the wrestler felt the familiar surge, adrenaline mixed with doubt. He had committed now. Backing away would feel like retreat. Pressing forward might bring consequences he had not fully imagined. Still, he held his ground. He had come too far to soften now. And as he waited for a response, something unexpected crept in alongside his confidence. The faint realization that whatever came next might not give him what he thought he was asking for. The words land heavier this time. Not louder, but sharper. They slice through the quiet and finally give shape to what everyone has been circling. The wrestler speaks about age openly now. About speed fading. About how time humbles everyone, no matter the name. He does not shout. He does not sneer. He states it like fact, like something proven by experience rather than arrogance. A murmur ripples through the hall. Some faces tighten. Others brighten with anticipation. This is the moment they recognize. The turn. The place where restraint usually cracks. He does not move at first. He listens until the wrestler finishes, until there is nothing left hanging in the air except expectation. Then he straightens slightly, not to loom, not to challenge, but to meet the moment with clarity. His eyes stay level. His expression stays calm. When he speaks, his voice is steady and low, carried more by presence than volume. He acknowledges the words without defending himself. He thanks the wrestler for being honest. The response is so unexpected that it disarms the room. A few people blink, unsure if they heard correctly. Gratitude is not the currency of confrontation. The wrestler hesitates, caught between momentum and confusion. He had prepared for denial, for bravado, for a verbal sparring match that would draw lines and sides. Instead, he is met with something closer to understanding. It throws his balance off more than any shove could. Trying to recover, he steps closer again, invading space this time. Not aggressively, but deliberately. He wants proximity. Wants to feel the difference in size and strength up close. Wants the older man to register it. His voice lowers, meant only for those within a few feet to hear, but the silence makes it public anyway. He suggests a test. Not a fight. Just a moment. A brief measure. Enough to see what remains. The hall holds its breath. He looks down at the floor for a second, as if considering the grain of the wood, the years etched into it by footsteps and sweat. When he looks back up, there is no irritation in his eyes. Only thoughtfulness. He does not rush to answer. He lets the pause stretch just long enough to cool the heat in the air. He nods once. Not in agreement, but in acknowledgement of the challenge itself. Then he lifts his hands, not into a guard, not into a threat, but open, palms relaxed. The gesture is small, almost casual, but it signals something important. He is willing to engage. On his terms. The wrestler swallows. The crowd shifts closer without realizing it. Chairs scrape. Someone steps onto a bench for a better view. The line between spectator and participant blurs. This is no longer about dominance. It is about choice. The wrestler squares his stance, muscles coiled, ready to explode forward if invited. His eyes search for a signal. A weakness. A spark. What he finds instead is stillness. The air thickens again, but differently now. Not with aggression. With anticipation sharpened by uncertainty. Whatever happens next will be brief. Measured in seconds, not minutes. And everyone in the hall senses that those seconds will not belong to force alone, but to something quieter and far more decisive. Time compresses. The noise of the hall seems to pull backward, as if someone has turned down a dial only he can hear. The wrestler's breathing grows louder in his own ears. Each inhale lifts his chest, each exhale tightens his grip on the moment. He is ready now. Not angry. Focused. This is the clarity he understands. He watches the older man closely, searching for tells. A tightening jaw. A shift of weight. Anything that signals fear or hesitation. He finds none. The stillness is not weakness. It is deliberate. He takes one final step forward. Close enough now that the heat between them has nowhere to go. The challenge is no longer spoken. It exists entirely in posture and proximity. The hall has gone silent enough that even the lights seem to buzz with anticipation. He raises his hands slowly. Not to strike. Not to grab. Just enough to indicate readiness. An invitation without words. The 12 seconds begin. In the first, nothing happens. The wrestler feels a flicker of irritation. Why wait? Why draw this out? He shifts his weight, preparing to initiate. In the second, the older man exhales deeply. His shoulders drop just a fraction. It is not surrender. It is grounding. By the third, he steps, not backward, not forward, but slightly to the side. The movement is so subtle it almost goes unnoticed, yet it changes the angle between them completely. The wrestler's line of attack dissolves before it forms. Fourth second. A hand lifts gently, not to block but to guide. The touch is light, almost respectful. The wrestler stiffens, surprised by the absence of force. Fifth. The older man pivots, using the wrestler's own forward tension against itself. There is no strain in his face. No grimace. Only focus. 6. Balance shifts. The wrestler feels it before he understands it. His weight, carefully planted moments ago, is no longer where he thought it was. 7th. The hall gasps, not loudly, but collectively. A shared intake of breath as realization begins to ripple outward. 8th. The wrestler stumbles half a step. Not thrown. Not humiliated. Simply redirected. The difference matters. 9th. The older man releases his contact immediately. No follow-through. No attempt to finish what was never meant to be a contest. 10th. Space opens between them again, clean and undeniable. 11th. The wrestler regains his footing, heart pounding. His eyes widen, not in fear, but in recognition. Something has just been shown to him, and it was not strength alone. 12th. Silence returns, heavier than before. The older man lowers his hands. He offers a small nod. Not victory. Acknowledgement. The air inside the hall changes. It loosens. The tension that had clenched every chest begins to drain away, replaced by something quieter, harder to name. The wrestler stands still, absorbing it. No one laughs. No one cheers. There is no spectacle to cling to. Only the echo of a moment that resolved itself without escalation. For the first time since stepping forward, the wrestler does not feel the need to prove anything. The realization unsettles him more than resistance ever could. The 12 seconds are over. And nothing in the room feels quite the same. The silence does not rush to fill itself. It lingers, careful, as if afraid to disturb what has just settled into place. The wrestler stands where he is, arms lowered, chest still rising fast. His body knows the adrenaline has nowhere left to go. His mind struggles to catch up. Around them, people shift slowly, uncertain how to re-enter the moment. Some had come ready for spectacle. Others had braced for embarrassment. What they witnessed fits neither shape. It leaves them quiet. The wrestler looks down at his hands. They are steady now. He flexes his fingers once, then lets them rest at his sides. The urge to reassert himself flickers, then fades. It feels unnecessary. Almost childish. He lifts his gaze again, meeting the older man's eyes without heat this time. He expects triumph there. Or judgment. Or even amusement. He finds none of it. Instead, there is something like patience. As if the moment is being offered back to him, not taken away. The wrestler exhales, long and heavy. The sound breaks the stillness. He nods once, small but deliberate. It is not surrender. It is recognition. The kind that arrives when a truth lands gently but firmly enough that it cannot be ignored. A few people begin to breathe again. Someone shifts a chair. Another clears his throat. The hall slowly remembers itself. The older man steps back fully now, increasing the space between them. He rolls his shoulders again, just as he had before, returning to the rhythm of his warm-up. The message is clear without being spoken. The moment has passed. There is no need to extend it. The wrestler hesitates, then mirrors the movement, shaking out his arms. The tension in his posture loosens. He feels strangely lighter, though nothing tangible has been removed. Something internal has simply unclenched. A quiet respect settles in the space between them. Not admiration. Not awe. Something steadier. Mutual recognition without hierarchy. They exchange a few words, low and private. Not explanations. Not praise. Just acknowledgement. The wrestler listens closely. He nods again. When he responds, his voice carries less edge. More honesty. Around them, people resume their routines, though with a new attentiveness. Conversations are softer. Glances linger longer. What happened will be discussed later, in other places, shaped and reshaped by memory. But here, now, it remains intact. The wrestler steps away first, giving space without being asked. As he moves, he feels eyes on him, not measuring, not judging, but curious. He does not mind. The curiosity feels different than before. Less demanding. The older man continues his warm-up, unbothered, unaltered on the surface. But those closest can sense the depth beneath his calm. Not superiority. Responsibility. The air inside the hall feels looser now. Easier to breathe. As if something sharp has been carefully set down rather than shattered. No one applauds. No one declares a winner. But everyone understands that something has been resolved, not through force, but through restraint that allowed dignity to remain intact on both sides. The rest of the session unfolds without incident, but it does not return to normal. Something subtle has shifted, and everyone feels it. Movements are quieter. Conversations carry a different weight. Even laughter sounds more thoughtful, as if people are careful not to tear the fabric of what just passed. The wrestler trains with focus, but without the urgency that drove him earlier. His strength is still there. His size still commands attention. Yet the edge has softened. Between sets, he catches himself replaying the 12 seconds. Not the imbalance, not the surprise, but the absence of humiliation. The way he was released instead of finished. The way space was given back to him. He realizes how rarely that happens. Across the hall, the older man moves steadily through his routine. There is no visible aftermath. No lingering glance. No claim to the moment. He does not seek acknowledgement for what he chose not to do. That restraint was never meant for an audience. At one point, their paths cross again near the water station. There is no tension now. Just a shared nod. The wrestler hesitates, then speaks, briefly, sincerely. Gratitude, offered without drama. It is accepted the same way. No speeches. No reassurance. Just a quiet understanding exchanged and released. Later, people will talk. They will describe the size difference, the stillness, the redirection. Some will exaggerate. Some will miss the point entirely. But a few will carry something deeper with them. Not a lesson they can quote, but a feeling they cannot shake. The sense that power does not always need to announce itself. That dignity can be preserved even in confrontation. The wrestler leaves the hall that day changed, though not in a way anyone can measure. He does not feel smaller. He feels steadier. Less driven by the need to test himself against every presence that fills a room. He understands now that recognition earned through force is fragile. Respect offered through restraint lasts longer. As for the older man, he exits the same way he entered, without ceremony. The hall does not quiet for him this time. It does not need to. What mattered has already been carried forward by those who witnessed it. Long after the floor cools and the lights dim, the memory remains, not of dominance, but of balance restored. Of a moment where escalation was possible, even expected, and yet something better was chosen. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just enough to change the air inside the room.